Statistics, you can see that. Oh, okay. See, that's what we cannot.
Quantas pessoas estão ali? 10. Vou começar já, então, tá bom?
Yeah, okay. Very good.
Okay, we shall start. I'm sorry for this problem. So, hello everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
At this webinar to talk about the development of biogas in Brazil. Just a quick check with the audience. Can you all hear me all right? Please write okay or yes on YouTube if you can hear me. Thomas, Mercedes, everything's working for you?
Yes.
It's okay.
Okay. So today we will have a very interesting chat with two of these very important people from the Brazilian and European biogas industry. It's a pleasure to talk to Mercedes Vasquez, the team leader of the EU-supported program Low Carbon Brazil Business Action, who has enabled strong research on biogas and an extensive experience with international relations and economic conjecture. On the other side, we have Thomas Duri, president of Bird Energy from Germany, which offers a global franchise system for cost-effective farm-side plants. Thank you both for joining us. My name is Nick, and I'll be your host today. I work at the market intelligence area at CI Biogas, the International Center of Renewable Energy in Itaipu Tech Park. We are a non-profit driven applied research institute located in Itaipu, Foz do Iguaçu. With the low carbon project, we have 5 projects or 5 concept notes, and one of them was a market study for bird energy. We have our own biogas lab and very specialized team for turnkeys, anaerobic digesters, and also development and innovation in several sectors. Please follow us on our social media to learn from our achievements, and also I am and also my team is at your disposal to answer any questions. I'm just going to do a quick introduction again in Portuguese for our Brazilian audience. Boa tarde a todos, muito obrigado pela presença de vocês. Peço desculpas por esse imprevisto que nós tivemos no YouTube. Nós vamos ter hoje uma conversa muito interessante com 2 pessoas muito importantes para a indústria de biogás brasileira e europeia. Temos aqui Mercedes Vasquez, que é a líder desse programa da União Europeia chamado Low Carbon Brazil. E temos do outro lado o Thomas Duri, que é o presidente da Bird Energy, que produz um reator containerizado em forma de franquia para fazendas. O meu nome é Nicolas e eu serei o host de vocês hoje. Eu trabalho na área de inteligência de mercado no CI Biogas, o Centro Internacional de Energias Renováveis, no Parque Tecnológico da Itaipu. Nós oferecemos serviços chave na mão de reatores anaeróbicos e estudos de mercado, assim como outros serviços da cadeia de biogás. Nós vamos ter hoje conversar sobre o programa do Low Carbon e escutar deles as perspectivas para a indústria do biogás e também algumas experiências de tropicalização de tecnologia. Agora eu vou voltar para o inglês. So, to begin with you, Mercedes, since you just came back from the low carbon finance matchmaking in São Paulo, could you please explain to your audience a bit of your current work here in Brazil and point out some of the main accomplishments that low carbon has gathered here? We cannot hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, no. Sorry, I put the mic off. I'm the team leader of a European Union program called Low Carbon Business Action in Brazil. If we look back to the Paris Agreement, both Brazil and the European Union are aligned in their achievements and the objective of reducing greenhouse gases emissions. Brazil has a huge commitment of reducing more than 30% of their emissions, the gases effect stufa, by 2030, while the European Union is a pioneer and leading a global leader in the transition economy to a low carbon economy. So far by 2050, the European Union aims to reducing its emissions by 80 to 95% from 1990 levels. That means that the Europe wants to be carbon-free or carbon neutral in the upcoming years. In this context, the European Union launched the for-year EU-funded initiative, Low Carbon, based on strategic sectors such as agriculture and forestry activities, renewable energy, industrial processes, waste and biogas, waste management, and biogas and energy efficiency. During the two first years on phase one, we launched 9 business rounds, matchmakings in these sectors. Around 300 companies from Europe and Brazil met and created partnerships, commercial partnerships. They signed around 650 agreement cooperations. And during the second phase, we selected 90 of these projects to provide them with technical assistance services like market, economic, environmental, feasibility studies, as well as facilitating finance access to finance, to funds, to commercial banks and development banks and investors funds to be able to implement this partnership and these partnerships between Europe and Brazil in Brazil. Those projects are will be based in Brazil. These last 2 days, in a culminating moment of closing our project in Brazil, we launched the Business to Finance event. More than 450 financing instruments for more than 200 banks, institutions, financial institutions were mapped in Brazil and in Europe. During these 2 days, we have had more than 150 participating companies, stakeholders, banks, investors, associations, European Union delegation, Brazilian and European companies. So they could discuss with the banks and with the investors the possibility to have the funding and do that their projects could reach a commercial and a viable stage. So we held more than 150 pre-scheduled matchmaking business to finance meetings. I'm very glad that companies like Bird Energy and Thomas participated, and we expect that this event could close with a gold moment, this project, this 4 years project in Brazil.
Yeah, it will certainly be a success. And when we talk about new techniques in renewable energies and low carbon engineering, we need to learn from them, from who has done it already. And I'm sure the European companies can supply us with this knowledge. And also it's important to do such an event to match the knowledge with the financing to make it happen. Thank you, Mercedes. Now, Thomas, I have a question for you. We were partners at one of the low carbon projects, Biogas and Bird Energy. We have developed a market study for your containerized reactor. Could you please describe the type of reactor you are offering here in Brazil and what has improved after the work we've done together?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We have basically two reactor technologies, and before explaining our reactor technology, I want to explain predominantly in Brazil you have also a lot of biogas, but it's called covered lagoon technology. And covered lagoon technology is actually has been invented by the Chinese people 2,000 years ago, and it goes, biomass is under a plastic foil, and the production of biogas goes by the climate. So when the sun is shining and it's warm, then there is biogas production, and if it is cold and it is nighttime, then there is no biogas production. And this is, of course, not a very efficient system, this whole technology. What we bring to Brazil is what's considered in Europe baseload energy, but because biogas is baseload energy. Solar, for example, is not baseload energy, because in nighttime, there is no.
I asked you, what do you mean by base load? It means that one can turn it on and off?
Yeah, baseload means it is available 24 hours, 365 a day. Sun is not available 24 hours. It's only available a few hours, and wind the same. So in that respect, biogas in Brazil is not a baseload energy source, because it runs maybe 5,000 hours per year, while our plants are running over 8,000 hours per year. That's the reason it's considered baseload energy. And so we bring this to the market in Brazil, that biogas is baseload and can supply consumers and factories day and night, consumers day and night. That is the first thing. And then the second thing I will talk a little later is we have developed now a containerized biogas plant. And I think this will be most interesting for the audience, because in Brazil we are aiming for a FINAME number, and there is no such thing like a biogas plant with a FINAME number in this country. And we saw that yesterday, that the banks, they were all quite puzzled from this, from our technology and from these things. And we can imagine that business and farmers and everybody is very excited about this. But you had a second question, Nicolas. It was what we have learned in combination with working with say biogas. When we came first with low carbon here, we were more or less, we had some ideas about the market, because we didn't spend money for market research. And then low carbon helped us with some funding, and we could give say biogas this job, which was funded by the program. And we found out that you really found three great markets for us. And this is, first of all, the entire food industry in Brazil. Every food factory could have a biogas plant and could be powered and use this plant with the waste from the biogas from the food factory. Second market is, of course, agricultural market. I will come to this a little later. And the third is the municipal solid waste. That is a big issue in Brazil. Municipal solid waste, that is the waste from the cities. And you can imagine, is 50% or 40% of the city waste is biomass. Brazil is so rich in energy. Brazil could be exporter of energy to all of Latin America.
Thank you, Thomas. as you said in one of our conversations, Brazil is the biomass wonderland, right? And I'm happy you mentioned the characteristic of biogas being a base load energy source. And that's to our audience now, that's one of the main characteristics of biogas. It's dispatchable. That means that you can easily store it. You have a constant flow of energy that you can store in a gas holder, and then you can turn it on and off, also as a thermoelectric. So this can really help the distributed electric system, and also to help to the demand of electricity in Brazil, which is always growing. Um, Now I'm gonna ask a question to Mercedes about the economic conjecture, looking at from the foreign side. Even with a complex tribute system and high import taxes, many companies look forward to operate in Brazil. According to your experience on market relations and different types of stakeholders, what could be done in order to raise the foreign investment on our energy infrastructure?
Thank you for the question. Yes, maybe not all the foreign companies know about the fiscal, the tax the situation in Brazil when they first arrive to the market. But it's not new that the Brazilian tax system is very costly, is very complex, and very with an excessive bureaucracy. What at the end it costs a lot of paying taxes and drives the companies to the legal uncertainty. Also, companies spend so much time wasting so much time on analyzing and paying the taxes. So it also drives to an efficiency situation. Paying so many taxes in the local market in Brazil undermine the competitiveness of the products and the services in Brazil, and also for the Brazilian products as well. So they are not competitive in the international market. So this is the huge problem of Brazil. I think that is contorted because it's a huge market of more than 200 consumers, and still it's a very inside the market looks so much inside the market. But when it comes of foreign companies trying to enter the market, that is a big challenge. Yep. And a challenge sometimes. And when it comes to the Brazilian companies going abroad, it is the same problem for them. They are not competitive prices and efficiency. So in a macro situation, the government has to really take the action, and it has to reduce the taxes and reform the legislation. But talking in a micro for the companies that enter the market, what I will suggest is that first they analyze very well the tax system in Brazil, that they pay money, they have a cost. It will never be a cost. It will always be an investment. If they have a double legal advisor in the legislation at origin, and knowing very well the legislation, the tax legislation in Brazil, this is my first advice, that they spend money and time on analyzing the cost after the imports, the tariffs in Brazil, and that they understand that this is crucial, it's essential for them to know how the prices are formed, because you have so many cumulative taxes, not only 1, 2, or 3. You have more than 10. Yes. Maybe taxes and contributions more than 15 or 20. So at the end, importing could not be the best option. Maybe they will have to look at the ex-tarifario, for example, know that reducing the taxes if they have innovative and equipment not similar in Brazil. They should also look for nationalizing, manufacturing those equipments and products that can be manufactured in Brazil, so then you don't have the taxes, the import taxes anymore. And of course, looking at the Asian the Asian products, similar products, because Brazil is a market of price. This is a fact. And you don't only have the competitiveness, the Brazilian similars, but also the Asian from China and all. So you have to look very well which are your competitors. That will be mostly my advice to the European companies.
It makes a lot of sense, and it's no news that we have a very complicated tariff system, and hopefully soon we will achieve a tribute system where we have only the income taxes and consume taxes and maybe some other tribute, but not more than 20 as we have today, with different legislations per state and so many exclusions and inclusions. Well, it's really complicated. And now hearing from a businessman from Europe that comes over to venture himself in Brazil, Thomas, our country is considered to be the barn of the world. And in its continental area, we have only 366 installed anaerobic digestion reactors, with 70%, almost more than 2/3, are installed in pig farms from swine production. Germany has more than 10,000 installed reactors in a much smaller area and much smaller organic matter production. Please tell us, what are we missing?
Yeah, very good point. Actually, Niklas, this was the reason we came to Brazil. Brazil was always one of the dream countries because it's, like you said, it's biomass heaven, I call it. And especially since in this country, bio-waste is still for free. I mean, you must imagine oil would be for free. Yeah, this is the same. It's the same. So there's no free oil. Everybody knows this. And if Brazilians come to Europe, they find out there's no free biomass in Europe. It's all taken away. And you have to pay for waste, for bio-waste, because we are talking fuel. Okay? And just to give our people, our listeners, an idea, in Germany, we have 200 million tons of slurry every year. Now, you will say, what are 200 million tons of slurry? When I say this is the power of 6 nuclear power plants, you get a small idea of what this means. 6 nuclear power plants, just in cow slurry and pig slurry, which we put on the fields every year. We throw it away. Then you can imagine how much is thrown away in Brazil. I have another number I can share with you. I use frequently when I'm in Brazil. The energy consumption from one average Brazilian person is the output of one cow. Or let's put it this way, the shit from one cow per year can supply the energy from one Brazilian person. So that gives you an idea, and I'm sure there are more than 200 million Brazilian cows. So we have more energy actually available, and then we still have the pigs and the chicken and so on. So you can see Brazil could be a huge exporter of energy. And Now, why has Germany started with that? Basically because German energy demand is, of course, higher than the Brazilian energy demand. That's because we have a colder climate. In Germany, to keep me warm, I need 4 cows, because I need 2 cows already only to ship the energy for the winter, because we have -10, -20, -30. And even in those temperatures, our biogas plants are operating. On the other hand, we have the need, what we have promised in the Paris Agreement, to become low carbon and to become climate neutral. Today, these 10,000 plants, they provide already about 17 to 20% of our renewable energy. And the good news is also that in Germany, in the summertime, when the sun is shining and we have good winds, we have already days where the entire country runs on biogas, solar, and wind. So we don't need any other power sources. But of course, in winter, with -20 and very little sun, we are still heavily dependent, and we need more biogas plants in Germany. This is not what we all need. We still need more of these biogas plants. So I hope this covers your question.
It does covers my question on why Germany has installed so many reactors, but I think I could not grasp your mind on what could we do here in order to achieve the 10,000 reactors, because energy is demanded. We do need energy, and we have already projections that our growth of population does not cover, actually, the growth of installed capacity does not cover the growth of population. And what should we do in order to have 10,000 biogas reactors?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and I think after the discussions and after having seen in the last couple of years how Brazil works, Brazilians think everything must be cheap and there must be a fast return of investment. So when we look at the covered lagoon system, this costs very little money. You dig a hole in the ground and you put plastic foil over it. But when you look at total cost of lifetime of this covered lagoon, this is twice as much of what our system cost. That means actually our European biogas system has very high initial cost, but then very low cost over the next 20 years. And this is a more mentality type thing. People are used in Brazil to pay only a fraction. Car leasing, everybody knows it must be cheap, but they are willing to pay this over 10 months or over 2 years. And I think if the government would help here with maybe some funding or some tax benefits in that respect, maybe business would consider this more. And we can see this when we look at our mobile system with a FINAME number. All of a sudden, FINAME means up to 12 years of financing. Then everybody gets excited. In Europe, we would never be able to sell with 12-year financing because business can calculate and say, we pay probably triple price over 12 years. This is expensive. So here, the government could maybe work with some incentives and maybe also tell companies, if they produce the energy for their own consumption, they get some tax breaks. Yeah. So I hope this is helping you in understanding my thinking.
Yes, I understood it now, and I think it has more to do with our Brazilian economics or thinking or way of doing business than of the biogas technique itself. And then this brings me to the point that maybe it's not only biogas that's suffering from this bad side of business, which is not to grow as much as other countries, but also other types of renewable energies or other sectors in engineering. And you guys were really busy yesterday on the low carbon event, but we had a really good news from our economy, which is our prime rate has just reduced 0.5%. So now we are talking about 5.5% per year, which is huge in comparison to some developed countries, but we are in our minimum historic rate. So hopefully things are gonna get better. Okay. Now let's go. We have only 2 more questions. Let's come to the end. So Mercedes Low Carbon Program has developed dozens of projects in several technical areas. So first of all, congratulations. We were partner of them in five projects. From the results of your work, what's your perspective on how can European companies help us grow?
Yes, Biogas has been a leader of our projects as well. More than 50% of the selected projects or the projects that we have handled during the program has been biogas, from the biogas sector, and mostly from Germany, from the German companies, and mostly in the southern, to be implemented in the southern states of Brazil. So that all begins to make sense. That biogas have a huge potential in Brazil, that biogas have a huge potential on the southern states where you have most of the swine and cattle cooperatives, as well as cultivation, plantações, cultivos of cereals and cereals mostly, that Brazil is one of the leader producers in the world. So I think that complementing what Thomas had said, if you see the historic the development of the biogas sector in Europe. Europe in 2016 had 17,000 biogas plants installed, but in only from 2009 to 2016, in that short period of time, but biogas plants have increased 3 times. That is because in 2009 the European Union set up the achievements or their commitments on the reduction of greenhouse emissions, and then started to implement incentives to subsidize, not subsidize, but to support, to incentivize the sector.
Yes.
Also, we have a geopolitical issue. Europe didn't want to be dependent anymore of the gas from Russia. So there were a policy, an implementing policy to have safety energy, to be safety energy and self energy, not to depend on other countries, especially not non-European countries. So this is that has worked. Germany is the leading, the United Kingdom, Sweden, others European countries has a strong biogas sector, and this is what it has to be done in Brazil. What about the technology, the European technology? I would say that from what I've heard, I've read. Maybe the biogas itself, like the grow has set up, has stopped a little bit, but why is still the sector growing in Europe? Is the efficiency, the installed capacity, what is growing now, the technologies and the efficiency, and maybe not anymore the construction of plants anymore. So now you go to the efficiency side, with the Europeans can show and can bring to Brazil. It's not only a matter of technology; it's a matter of installing capacity and efficiency of the technology. This is what Europe is doing now, and also the biomethane, which is more and more important and being an upcoming technology in Brazil, in Europe. So I'm not an expert. We have an expert here. Maybe Thomas can complete this. What are the European companies bringing to Brazil? As Brazil already have biogas plants, almost 700, almost 400 maybe, but not 17,000. What can the European companies do for the Brazilians?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's efficiency, because of the Brazilian biogas plants are only running 5,000 hours a year.
Mm-hmm.
They could be running 8,600 hours a year. So that's first of all, it's efficiency, and then also it's what we can learn from Europe is biogas should be decentralized. Especially in Europe, we have started with strongly centralized biogas plants. Big cities have megawatt biogas plants, and that's actually where our company is doing exactly the opposite. We are one of the very few biogas companies focusing on farm-sized biogas, on small biogas. And Brazil has more than 7 million farmers, and they all could have their own biogas plant. They all could be also energy independent. And for example, we see this now in Japan, where we are also active. Japan is getting hit by tsunamis through our change in climate. These tsunamis are even breaking the strong Japanese grid system. So all of a sudden, people don't have power anymore. That can happen also here in Brazil. Also power cuts. And then when you have decentralized biogas plants, then of course you're not dependent anymore on the central grid. So I think these are some very important issues, and especially when the population is growing strong in Brazil, you cannot increase Itaipu and make bigger power lines through the country. You should have decentralized power.
Yeah, definitely. We can all agree that biogas has many advantages.
We don't hear him.
Thank you, Thomas. We can all agree that biogas has these very interesting advantages, mainly on the energy safety, energy independence, and distributed energy, which is something that also could be done to help rural properties. Here in Brazil, it's a vast country. Sometimes we have power cuts in our home, which is not doesn't bring much of financial losses, but sometimes we have cuts in rural properties, and maybe many animals die due to the heat, or they have lack of water, lack of food, and this can come to a lower profitability of the rural business in Brazil. Well, coming to an end, Thomas, I'm going to ask you the question everybody wants to hear, and we've been frequently asked about that. On your expertise, which substrate has the highest potential to boost this anaerobic reactors growth in Brazil in the next 3 years?
Well, if I could answer that question, I would be not sitting here anymore, Nicholas. But I can tell you, and I think people can already guess the answer. If Germany has six nuclear power plants just in cow slurry and pig slurry. Brazil has probably 20, 30, 40 nuclear power plants. I have not made the calculations because it's so much. And this is also the easiest biogas plant, actually. It is the most simplest biogas plant that can be built. And also, for example, we call our farmers in Europe energy farmers. Why are they called energy farmers? Because they not only produce meat and milk, they produce energy. And that makes them much less dependent on meat prices, on milk prices. So that has a stabilizing factor. So this is why I think we will see a big impact. And I hope, of course, that our product, Bert Mobile, which is a containerized product that is industrially manufactured in Brazil, 100% Brazilian content. So we don't have any imports. And it's a local product with a FINAME number, that this product can be produced like trucks and cars, will make a big impact with the farmers in the farm community. And besides all the economic benefits in terms of money, besides of all the energy benefits, we are talking also CO2 reduction. I mean, this is all about, right? That's why we started to come here and share this knowledge. So, because of course, Brazilian farmers are also known as big polluters in the world. And I think it's important that Brazilian farmers know, if they want to keep selling to industrialized countries, they have to clean up their image. They cannot longer put the slurry in the rivers and the methane in the air and just come across with some cheap prices. They have to change something. And so I think definitely my winners is animal slurry. The second point is, of course, food production, because Brazil is a big exporter of meats and fruits and so on. So all these factories have a lot of waste. They also could use that waste immediately, actually, to reduce their cost and become even more effective. Yeah, and we can see that in Germany, prices of energy are coming down because renewable energy is not expensive. Yeah, prices of energy is coming down, and we can produce 1 kilowatt hour with biogas for less than 8 reais. Yeah, we can produce it, so it is possible to do that. So I would say cow slurry, number one. Second is food waste. And then, of course, municipal solid waste is also huge. But I think this development might be a little bit slower, since this whole sector is acting slower. It's more driven by politicians and tax money. And this whole process is usually a little slower. But the amount of money, the amount of energy in there is huge. And once mayors understand that they could actually run the city more efficient with less taxes and lower energy prices just by using their waste, they might rethink it. We have in Germany already, I can't remember how many cities, but I think it's about 170 cities in Germany which we call energy independent. They are not any longer on the grid.
Awesome.
And this is something Brazil could also do, make a competition, make your city independent from the grid.
Thank you, Thomas. One really important point of this discussion is that in Brazil, we are not allowed for small producers to sell the energy. They can only compensate the energy produced, so they are stuck up by their by their consumption. And so I understand that slurry and cow dung are a big market. And now we have two questions from our. We have some questions from our audience to you guys. Well, the first of them is from Gishtek. Do you think plastic biodigesters are already outdated? If so, what's the best solution?
If I do I understand correct? It's about plastic.
It's a plastic. I mean, I think what he means is the reactor made of plastic.
Yeah, there is a lot of development, I must say. Even in Germany, I heard about digesters out of textile. I must admit, I'm not an expert on this. I have not looked at this because at the end, it's about reducing the cost for the biogas equipment in all. It depends about the size, I would say. I know our Indian colleagues are doing biogas in plastic reactors, but this is, of course, a smaller size. I don't know about any huge plastic tanks being used in the biogas industry, but why not? It could be possible, especially since plastic is widely available as a waste material. So if it can be used for such application, it will be, of course, very interesting.
Okay.
I hope this answers the question. If not, please go on our website. You find my email address and just send it at info@bert-energy.com, and then I try to give a more detailed answer.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. We have another question from Francisco in São Paulo, and what he's asking is about lots is said about the potential in sugarcane industry. What do you think about it, Thomas?
Of course, I mean it's well known because the sugarcane industry has been producing ethanol, and sugar is wonderful. Is very high energy. I always explain to people when they ask how does biogas work. I always say think about your stomach. It's a digester, and what happens if you eat sugar? You get energy. And that is the same with our digesters, our biodigesters. Fat and sugars are very good for the bacteria. You can produce a lot of energy. So sugarcane industry is a fantastic industry to produce energy from the waste of that production, not from the sugar. You know, that we want in the food industry. We're only talking waste, nothing else.
Yes, we are just complementing the Thomas. In the low carbon program, we have already some projects using the vinyasa, the waste of the
sugar production
of the sugar cane, and converting into biogas. So I invite this audience, this person to go into our website, Low Carbon Brazil, with Z in English, lowcarbonbrazil.com.br, because this project is highlighted in the home, so he could also access on the project details, and we have interview with the Brazilian and the European partners, so they give a lot of technical details and in terms of the technology and in terms of the potential that as Thomas, I have heard in many conferences that sugar is a fast and very like a burning, very, very much potential waste.
Okay. Well, we're going to go now to our last question before we finish our webinar. And this is the question from Eric Delacour. He's the president of Fertigas. So Eric, thanks for watching us. He was also our partner in the low carbon, one of the low carbon concept notes. And he has a really interesting question. I think that this question would be for you, Thomas. I'm going to read it out. How can we convince pig farmers that pig manure has to be mixed with other substrates in order to improve the production of cubic meters per digester, and then gives the needed economical return. So I think what he's asking is, how can you convince the farmer to do something he has never done in order to have a quicker economic return?
I mean, I know the person who is asking this question. I must say, we have very different views, actually, on this issue. I would not try to convince a farmer to do something which he's not interested in doing, because the question is, how can we produce more biogas and more energy? And of course, when you add to the pig manure other biomass, sugarcane, for example, binasse, you can make much more. But what happens? The next problem is this farmer produce a lot of energy, but he has no feed-in point. That means we have to bring a feeding point for the electricity there, which is very costly. So that is not very smart. Our philosophy is, let the farmer just produce that amount of energy which is there with his pig slurry, and he should consume this. We have in Europe this thinking of course, making big power plants. So you produce a lot of kilowatt hours with your biogas plant. Why? This is driven by economics, because of a bigger biogas plant usually has better return on invest and is easier to finance. But this is exactly the reason why we have invented this BERT mobile system, which is very small. Yeah, but it is like your private power plant. It produces still more power than the pig farmer needs, still more, and we still need to feed in. But it is not so expensive. It is payback period about 3 to 4 years, while a bigger plant also has a good payback period, but you might have to pay 3 or 4 times the price. So that's the reason I would not go and convince this farmer, because I know exactly how hard it is to convince a farmer, to do things he does not know. In our case, it's easy to tell the farmer, let your pig slurry run through a digester where it gets heated up, where it produces the electricity you want. It takes 5 minutes of your daily attention, not more. And we are talking about 600,000 reais for this investment, not more. You get a Finami number. So I think this is very convincing for every Brazilian farmer, and it's not scaring him away with jobs he doesn't want to do, with substrates he doesn't want to deal with problems he never had before. So I would say we go different ways here in our thinking.
Okay. Well, our webinar has come to an end. I thank you, the audience. We had more than 40 people watching us. So thank you so much, you all. Mercedes, thanks so much for your time. Thomas, thank you so much for your contributions on technique of biogas. I was happy to be your host. And do you guys have a message for us or for the Brazilian audience?
Well, I am almost Brazilian. I live in Brazil almost for more than 15 years. Sim, em português. A minha mensagem seria que eu sou nova realmente neste setor, né? Gerencio os projetos da União Europeia e para mim está sendo um aprendizado e é sensacional ver como tem potencial e estamos conseguindo que os empresários se comuniquem e nestes 3 últimos anos eles continuem tentando no mercado. Se tiver alguém mais do âmbito político, governamental, eu diria que facilitem os negócios para os empresários, incentivem o setor, subsidiem os investimentos e legislem acordemente com as necessidades do setor, porque só vejo vantagens no setor de biogás. Resolve o problema do lixo, seja ele urbano, seja ele orgânico, gera autossuficiência energética, descentraliza, que o Brasil tem um grande problema de dependência do sistema interconectado de eletricidade, e facilita também a geração de uma energia limpa, que ainda contribui com as metas gigantescas que o Brasil tem que responder perante o Acordo do Clima. Então, só posso dizer que tem que acontecer, porque nada de ruim esse setor pode trazer, e são benefícios para a saúde, para os fazendeiros e o próprio meio ambiente.
Okay.
Well, sorry, I cannot speak Portuguese. So my message is very simple. Renewable energy in total, and especially biogas, is a great business, and it's economy, and it's profitable. It's good for the environment. It's good for our children, and everybody who has waste, bio waste, should really look at this. Can contact us. We will help them to make a profitable case, and so economy and ecology can work together hand in hand, and we are happy to support the Brazilian people on this way. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. We're going to finish our webinar. Our contacts from CI Biogas is here on the description of the video. And thank you all. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Nicolas.
Thank you.
Thank you to CI Biogas.
Thank you to CI Biogas. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Fechou?